But let's move into the next topic, and that's where we're going to break down Hawks versus Pelicans. They made a trade before the draft night started that sent the 4th pick, Solomon Hill, and the 57th pick to Atlanta, and New Orleans got the 8th pick, the 17th pick, and the 35th pick in last night's draft. Atlanta then went and took DeAndre Hunter at 4 and also secured Cam Reddish at 10. That was the pick they got in the Luka Doncic Trae Young trade last year. So the Hawks come away with 2 picks in this one, DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish. And the Pelicans, obviously with the number 1 overall pick that they got from the lottery, took Zion Williamson. Then with the 8th pick that they got from the Hawks, took Jackson Hayes. Then with the 17th pick they got from the Hawks, took Nicky Alexander-Walker. And then with the 35th pick, took Marcos Luazada Silva from Brazil, a draft and stash player. So, Ricky, looking at those builds right there, Silva, Alexander-Walker, Hayes, Williamson versus Hunter and Reddish. Who came out with a better draft?
Very quickly, before I give my answer and why it's the Hawks here, I want to say this. The Anthony Davis trade has turned into this. So the Pelicans for Anthony Davis got Lonzo, B.I., Josh Hart. They got then at 8, I'm trying to think, I'm remembering off of everything. They took, remind me who they took at 8? That's what I'm blanking on because Jackson Hayes. Then they took 17, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Brazil draft and stash at 35. Then on top of it, Laker 20 first pick, top 8, 22 pick if not, swap in 23, first in either 24 or 25. Oh, and they got rid of Solomon Hill's contract. So I part of you wants to say, oh, the Pelicans had a really good draft. But the thing why I'm saying the Hawks, and this is razor thin, like I think both of them had great drafts. They had amazing draft nights. Both fan bases should be happy. The thing I like about the Hawks is they took their draft capital and they were not okay with just staying pat and going at 8 and 10. They were able to make a trade with the Pelicans, get the guy that they want in DeAndre Hunter at 4, which shocked me because I thought they would be trading up for Jarrett Culver, add a 3 and D guy that they can play at the 3 with Kevin Huerter at the 2 and Trae Young at the 1. And then they add another 3 to run their second unit, in my mind, in Cam Reddish. And it could end up being where these 2 players help out the Hawks more immediately compared to what the Pelicans got. Because, yes, they got Zion, and everyone's going to say, oh, they got Zion, end of discussion. But Hayes is still a development. We don't know although I think Nikhil Alexander-Walker is going to have a good NBA career, I don't know what to expect from him year 1 with Drew Holiday on this team, with Lonzo Ball on this team, with Josh Hart on this team. They got a lot of guards to kind of work into this and kind of mesh, and a lot of new faces getting to know each other on the court, to where I feel like the growing pains are going to be a little bit more with the Pelicans, which could be expected, whereas the Hawks, I feel like they're going to fit in and kind of have more immediate success with the guys that they drafted.
I think it's clear and far, at least just based on what they did tonight, it's the Pelicans, because even if you take out Zion, I think they win that trade getting 8, 17, and 35. I think that's a fantastic pick for them. You also clear up a lot of cap space getting rid of Solomon Hill's contract, so that's an immediate win for them. And if they didn't take on that Solomon Hill contract, they probably most likely could have gotten 8 and 10.
And the Hawks also got, ESPN is weird and they don't put it down, but Bruno Fernando in the second round is a Hawk, although right. It's listed as a Sixer.
You're correct. So they did get Bruno Fernando as well from Maryland, so thanks for correcting that one. But even then, with that, I'm still going New Orleans. You got the best player in the draft. Thank you, lottery, and Zion Williamson. But at 8, you go with Jackson Hayes, and while that doesn't really address their ability to stretch the floor, I still think that he is I think he was the second best center prospect available. I think he was probably a safer bet than Bol Bol. And while I like Goga more, and I think Goga has the ability to stretch the floor from 3, from the 5 to the 3, I think that at least Hayes brings that ability to grow. And you have a ton of athleticism in that front court with Zion and Jackson Hayes. And what puts it over the top is that pick at 17. You take Nicky Alexander-Walker, who I think is a fantastic combo guard, a guy that can stretch the floor from three, has a great long wingspan, can defend. I think that he's an all-around solid player. And as Dave was calling him, he's Drew Jr. And Drew Jr. Drew Sr. Went 17 in his draft selection. And obviously he was dealing with injuries and he didn't hit his full potential until later on in his career, but he did it, and now he's an all-star. And I think that Nicky Alexander-Walker has that potential in him. So while you didn't get a perfect draft when it comes to fit, you got a lot of talent, and a lot of it's young, especially with Zion and Jackson. And then Marcos Silva, too. I wasn't huge on him. He wasn't any guy. He wasn't a guy that was in my my 2-round mock draft.
Yeah, all three of us didn't have him.
But what they did go out and do, too, was sign Zylan Cheatham, the Arizona State center. So they got him on a 2-way contract, and he's a guy that can stretch the floor. He's a guy that can also dish the ball out from the center position. He's 6'8", so he might be more of a 4, but he's a guy that I really love too. All around, I think the Pelicans are coming out golden in this draft, and I think it's absolutely fantastic for them what they did. And that trade that you laid out earlier on, what they got from the Lakers and the Hawks, they got cap relief, they got players that can help them immediately in Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and Josh Hart, and they got superstars in at least, Zion Williamson, and they got 2 guys that can be good starters for a long time on their team in Jackson Hayes and Nicky Alexander-Walker, where you have 2 shots at the Hawks with DeAndre Hunter, a very solid player, but we always question about his top end, and you got Cam Reddish, a huge question mark. A lot of potential with him, but will he be able to hit it? I like the immediate impact that you're going to get in New Orleans.
Well, and the thing is, first off, with the New Orleans thing, I like the tweet I saw where it's basically, man, I love how there's 19-year-olds that don't know yet that they're going to be a part of the Anthony Davis trade from the Pelicans to the Lakers. But I feel like this answer, and the reason why I kind of brought it up to you to talk about it because of the trade that they made, you're going to answer this question based on what you like. If you're saying the Pelicans, you're saying it's the better draft because of the future. The future looks bright in New Orleans. If you say Atlanta, you're looking at what they are right now and what their immediate success could be. And also conference kind of plays into this a little bit, I feel, where the Hawks, to me, although they weren't a playoff team, had a successful year this year, especially with Trae Young in his rookie year. The Hawks were proven to where it's we made the right choice not drafting Luka and taking Trae Young. He fits with what we want to do. Well, now they add in DeAndre Hunter, who's going to help, and I feel like he's going to be a player that instantly helps this team day one. And I feel like this is possibly the best situation for Cam Reddish, where it's hey, you know what? We're just going to let you run the second. I feel like, Cam, we'll let you run the second unit. You be the guy on the second unit, and that could help Cam Reddish. It's going to also answer those questions that we had about Cam. Was the production on him? Was it because playing with RJ and Zion was just hard for Cam and he didn't really fit after a while with those 2 guys? To where you look at the East, you need that kind of immediate to where it's hey, you know what? We can maybe take a stab, increase our win. Even if they increase their wins by 10 from last year, if they had 10 more wins this year, they would have missed the playoffs by 2 games. So already they could be an 8 seed next year if Hunter and Reddish and Bruno play well. Whereas New Orleans, hey, we got a lot of teams here in the West that'll be competing. The Lakers are looking to compete now. The Rockets compete now. The Warriors compete now. We're going to just draft these assets with these draft picks. We're going to take a guy like Jackson Hayes because if it takes him a year or 2 to develop, we've got that time. The West is more of a breather where it's hey, we're not looking to compete for an 8 spot anytime soon, where the Hawks can say, hey, let's go ahead and get it, and let's compete for an 8 spot this year with the rookies we're bringing in. And I'm looking at the Discord. Did Minnesota sign your boy Naz?
Yeah, Minnesota made the greatest decision of their life. They got Naz Reid. Naz Reid, you have Rocco, you have Culver, you have my boy Josh Okogie. I am hyped right now about this fucking team. Hell yeah. But yeah, I think overall, at least with the Pelicans, the biggest takeaway that you have to take away is Jesus Christ, is that they addressed all their needs. They needed a center, they got him. They needed a power forward, they got him in Zion Williamson. They needed a shooting guard, they got him in Nicky Alexander-Walker. They hit every single mark. That's what you needed to fill out your team. And not only did you do that efficiently with getting that, you got 3 young players to do so. And all of them might not have star potential. One of them clearly does in Zion Williamson, but they all have starter to all-star level potential. And I think that if Jackson Hayes is able to show a little bit more aggressiveness defensively, especially on the board side, I think that he could be a really great player. And if he's able to add some more muscle, hit the gym with Zion, I think that he could really bulk up and be an intriguing addition. And along with that, you're going to hide some of those deficiencies with Zion's ability to rebound. And with Nicky Alexander-Walker, you're learning from 2 great guards, at least defensively, in Lonzo and Drew Holiday, and you're looking at a guard in Drew Holiday that's so similar to yourself. It's like looking in a mirror. It's going to be easy to take lessons from him if you're a smart player. And from what we've seen from his cousin and from Nicky Alexander-Walker, Nicky Alexander-Walker seems extremely smart. So I think this is a fantastic draft for the Pelicans. And you talked about, the long term versus what they are now, but I still think that the Pelicans, they came into or before the lottery as a team that looked desolate, and now they're coming out as one of the top teams when you're looking at a rebuild. And yes, the Hawks have added a lot of talent, and you're looking at that team, and they look pretty dangerous, having Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins as well, and then you add on the question mark of Cam Reddish. They're definitely an intriguing team, but if you're looking at shots, you have so many shots with high-level potential guys in New Orleans with Zion, B.I., Lonzo, and now you're just adding multiple guys onto that can be bench players at least in Nicky Alexander-Walker, in Jackson Hayes, in Josh Hart, and even then they just announced that they're going to bring back Jahlil Okafor, and Okafor had a resurgence there. So having a coach like Alvin Gentry, I think this team put them in a beautiful spot, and you just got to applaud the hire of David Griffin. You got to applaud Gail Benson. She did a phenomenal job in turning this team around, firing Dell Dempson, taking this team from Anthony Davis's team to a team that has a ton of potential that might be in a better place than where they were when they had Anthony Davis, because a lot of cap was going to go towards him. And now you only have cap tied up in Zion Williamson. And we don't know the ceiling of Alonzo Ball. We don't know the ceiling of Brandon Ingram. So they might not demand a huge contract, but they still might be very important players. And obviously, you're just going to need to focus on keeping Zion Williamson. And how you do that is put a lot of talent around him and a lot of potential. And these guys are going to hit the same peak at the same time. And I absolutely love what New Orleans did coming out of the 2019 NBA draft. So I think you got to give props to the NOLA and the Big Easy.
Well, the thing, too, is the timeline for the Pelicans were, I believe, Zion, Nikhil, and Jackson are all going to be locked up until 2024, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Who's that?
Because the rookie contract's 5 years. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 2024, you'll probably have all 3 of those first rounders that long. I don't think they're going to, unless like a massive injury happens, they're not going to not take a team option from them. The only question for me, there's 2. The first is, what do you do with the Laker guys? Obviously, we got to see how they perform this year, but you've got Lonzo and Josh Hart, which are on their last team options next year, with 2020, 11 mil for Lonzo in that year, 3.4 for Josh Hart. Brandon Ingram, he hits his first RFA after this upcoming season, so they'll have a qualifying offer that they can offer him, but he's an RFA in 2020, and anything is possible in the free agency market. My question for you is one that I asked on the stream, and it comes with Drew Holiday, with him being A, the oldest, and B, the most money that they're giving up right now after 2019. So starting with next offseason, because 2020 could be his last year. If he doesn't take his player option in 2021, then it's like, oh, shoot, we got to re-sign Drew Holiday, or he can go somewhere else. After 2019, do you think the Pelicans maybe look to shop Drew Holiday because of how young their team is right now and those contracts coming up a little shorter for those Laker guys.
I think the biggest thing that's going to come down to that is, does he want to stay on the team? Mm-hmm. And if you're going to be able to re-sign him after that contract comes up, I think you keep him on the team. If he announces and lets you know,
it's not like you got anything else to put your money in. Right now.
If he does you a favor and says, "Hey, I'm going to leave. I want to pursue a championship," I think that you obviously move him. But if he doesn't, I think you need a leader on this team. I think Drew Holiday's game is going to age pretty gracefully. Giving him a max is going to be questionable because you have to pay Zion and all that, but it's depending on what he wants exactly from a contract and what he'll demand from a contract, because he'll be a little bit older when that contract does come up, and he's dealt with injuries.
31 if he doesn't take the option, 32 if he does.
And he's been dealing with a lot of injuries before, so I would be questionable on what he would want, but I think seeing him to the end and seeing if you can re-sign him would be smart, because I think his game is going to age gracefully, like I said, and I think that him as a leader on that team is going to be huge. So I would really look to keep Drew Holiday on that team long term, if it's possible.
For me, I don't think it's going to be possible, and the reason why is because of two things. One, that Laker talent. How many of those three are they going to re-sign? Of course, they got the boatload of picks that are coming after this from the Lakers, but depending on how good they are, how high are those draft picks? Lonzo, I think they re-sign. BEI, I think they re-sign, but also I don't think Lonzo gets a max, so that's good. I don't think Brandon Ingram gets a max from what he's playing. He hasn't played like a max level player. I know that we all thought
he might get a max just because of his potential.
And that's what I'm thinking, is because of the potential he might get it. But the thing you have to think about with Drew Holiday, let's say he declines the option and wants to sign, what are you going to give him years? Because this one that he just signed with the Pelicans that's coming to an end was a 4+1. Well, you got to think, all right, in 2024 potentially, I need to. Like, I am saving a max spot for that because Zion is just, here you go, Zion, here's your max dollars. Mm-hmm. Like, here's your next contract, no questions asked. And I know that's a little bit presumptive for a guy who just got drafted, but I feel like that's going to be Zion. Is here's your next contract, and see if you like it. We want to keep you here for the max. Are you going to be able to do that with Drew if you're signing him to another 4+1?
Because you're going to be able to go over because you have his bird rights. So you're going to be able to do that just because of the rules that allow you to do so. Yeah. It's just going to be, will you go into luxury tax and can you afford that? That's going to be the biggest thing for them, is just coming down to being able to balance all those contracts together. But you'll be able to afford that just because of the bird rights. I think too, I don't think Drew's going to demand that much when he's that older. I think a long thing about him is just going to be making sure you have that length and having that at least time, because if you're 32, you're going to probably want a contract that lasts you until you're 36. So that might be something that he might be able to, go around with, is maybe I'll take a, longer contract for less money, just to make sure that I can secure a spot on this team for a long time and secure a contract. So that might play into it. But in the end, your biggest idea is just to go after Zion. And a big thing too is you're going to trade some of those first rounders at some point to add talent to this team. And if you don't, you might be able to attach one of those to a Drew Holiday when it does come time to contract. So that's one thing that is a benefit from this, is that you're going to be able to take some of those first rounders. And if Drew Holiday is a bad contract at any point, if you do re-sign him, you can possibly move him just due to the wealth that you gained in that Laker trade for Anthony Davis. I think they came out absolutely golden in this. And I don't think the Hawks had a bad draft at all. I just think that you look at what they did, specifically the Pelicans, and they set themselves up beautifully.
And the thing that also blows my mind, and it's weird because Kobe Altman, I don't think, had a bad draft. We're going to get to the Cavs, I believe, later, but it's weird. Kobe Altman didn't have a bad draft, but I look at this, and I look what David Griffin was able to pull off with this in such a short time, and I just go, why did the Cavs walk away from why did Dan Gilbert, I get their relationship was probably bad. This happened June of 2017, but it's just, it makes you think, how did he ever lose his job with what he's been able to do, because he is a good GM and at least he knows the rules of the cap salary, unlike other GMs. The other question I was going to ask you is about the Hawks, because I mentioned that, hey, with Hunter and Reddish and Bruno, they could be a team that maybe adds 10 wins, competes for the playoffs in the weak East. In your mind, is this a team that competes for the 8th seed in the East, or is this a year where, well, the Hawks probably won't be picking 8 next year. They'll probably pick 13, 14, like where the Hornets or Heat were.
I think a big part of their success is going to be based around free agency. Are they going to be able to keep Dwayne Dedmon? Are they going to be able to add a player off the bench that could help out Trae Young when it comes to ball handling duties? Because that was a big thing of talking them into Jarrett Culver, was his ability to take away possessions from Trae Young and at least give him a break from bringing the ball up every single time. So I think finding a backup point guard is going to be big for them. Finding a combo guard to help Trae Young if not Kyle Herter, Kevin Herter is not on the floor. If they're able to slot a guy in that 2 position that can also take the ball away from Trae Young and maybe even put him off screens and stuff like that. Will they be able to find those players that can help them become that playoff team? Because their starting lineup, it is very good and it is very young. You love Trae Young, what he did last year. Most likely has a shot to be an all-star this year. Kyrie's going to stay in the East. So I was thinking that would be freeing up a spot. But
New York or Brooklyn.
But yeah, I was thinking it might free up a spot, but he's staying in the East. Lowry, if the Raptors aren't good, if Kawhi leaves, I think Lowry was an all-star last year, so that might free up a spot. I'm just thinking of ways that he can make an all-star team, but I think it's definitely possible for him to do that if he has the same season that he had, especially the end to last year, if he's able to recreate that. So you have an all-star there. John Collins is a growing 4, and I think defensively he's going to be a very good player for you, but he still needs to take a step defensively. Pretty much the starting lineup is young, but I don't think they're good enough to be a playoff team yet. And I don't know if their exact goals are to make the playoffs at this point, because you still have the ability to add more to this team, and you still have time as well. Hunter isn't an old player. He did play 2 years, but he isn't exactly old. Trae Young is very young too. Cam Reddish is young. Herter's young. So I think they have time to kind of let this sit. And if they are close, they might make a move like the Mavericks to help out this team, like possibly the KP move. But they also might look back and be like, all right, let's get rid of some of this waste and let's kind of tank just a little bit. But I think overall this team, they'll be competitive. I think they'll probably end up in that 15 to 10 spot though, where they're not a bad team at all. They're close to the playoffs, but they might just miss out or might just make it. I think they're probably similar to the Magic. Well, not the Magic last year, because the Magic were an older team. What team could they be compared to? Kind of like the Bulls 2 years ago when they just randomly made the playoffs. I know they weren't exactly a young team.
Are you talking about
that was the post Jimmy trade?
The D-Wade? No.
It was D-Wade. It was
with the D-Wade, the Jimmy, the Rondo team that made the 8th seed.
That team wasn't supposed to make the playoffs. I think that might be them, where it's just like, oh wow, the East is so bad we made it.
Except with veterans, they do it with the talent that they drafted.
The East is so bad we made it. I think that would be the way they make it end. Not saying that they're not talented. I just don't know if that's exactly gonna be their goal, because they might just look to add youth one more time before fully going for it. But I could be completely wrong. I think they do have a for-sure all-star in Trae Young though. So I think that's probably where the Hawks stand. I don't know if they're really going to be pushing towards a playoff spot, but I wouldn't be shocked by it. Final thoughts: Pelicans versus Hawks.
One of the final things, I'm looking at something really quick here. No, that wasn't when they were the 8th seed. I was looking when the Warriors, because I know they were the 8th seed like the first time they made the playoffs with Steph, and I can't find it. I thought they were the 8th seed. But looking at the All-Star roster from last year, from the starters, speaking of the East, I don't think anyone, like Giannis is still going to be an All-Star. Kyrie is still in the East. Kemba, if he stays with the Hornets. If he goes to L.A., then maybe Kemba's spot. Kawhi, if he stays with the Raptors, is still in the East. Joel Embiid. Reserves, Bradley Beal, Blake Griffin, D'Angelo Russell, if he goes to Minnesota. Ben Simmons will stay. Chris Midd, like a Chris Midd, a Kyle Lowry, D Wade, because he's retiring, and then like a Vucevic and Oladipo, who is going to be injured. There will be spots for Trae Young to maybe make that All-Star team. It'd be cool if we had a Luka, Trae Young, both make the All-Star in their second year in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that both guys are at least slotted too. Mm-hmm. I mean, Luka should have been an All-Star last year, without a doubt. I mean, like, that kid was fantastic. So I think he should have been an All-Star last year, and I think that Trae Young could put himself in that position to become an All-Star. But let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Who would you take? Who had the better draft, Hawks or Pelicans? Pelicans obviously had more of a top-end draft with Zion and had a couple more picks than the Hawks.
Future.
But at least with the Hawks, they were able to add Bruno. They were able to add Reddish, and they were able to add Hunter. So let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Who won this, Hawks or the Pelicans?